Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Lora O'Brien Irish Draoi, and by special request I have my mother, Loretta Moore. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember what I was talking about, one of the videos, and I was like, I wonder would my mom want to do an interview, and would people be interested in hearing her perspective on things? And it turns out that people were very interested. So about 3 weeks ago, we started getting questions in, and my poor mother has been a little bit nervous about doing this, but we said we'd give it a go. So, hello, Ma'am. Where are you from? Or do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm from Dublin originally. Do you want to know how old I am?
You don't have to tell how old you are, not at all. You can if you want, of course, because it's nothing to be fucking ashamed of.
Born in Dublin, childhood spent between Ireland, Canada, England, and back to Ireland again.
Yeah, so that's one thing I've always kind of appreciated. You have a bit of diaspora perspective on that. You know what it's like to be outside of Ireland. You know what it's like to kind of miss Ireland. I think it gave you definitely gave you a good context for things from what I could see.
Most especially England. Like I was very young going to Canada and that.
Yeah.
5 coming back. But England, I was nearly 13 coming back from England. And I vividly remember on the ferry coming home and being up on deck. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
And my dad saying, we're going home, we're going home.
Making me emotional too. It's a great way to start. It is actually a great way to start. A little bit of emotion never hurt anyone. Feel your feelings, as my Dagda priest partner says. We have to feel them feelings. Mm-hmm. So, into the questions then. Well, actually, first, how do you feel about this? Like, how do you feel about doing an interview on your daughter's YouTube? I'm Loretta's eldest daughter. I have 3 younger siblings. So, how does it feel to be invited onto the YouTube channel and all this?
Honestly, a bit overwhelming. I'm a bit embarrassed because I never thought that I would be in a situation like this, but I'm also so hugely proud of you and what you're achieving, the things that you're doing. I think you're amazing.
Okay, 2 for 2. How many times are we actually going to make each other cry this through this interview? We'll take bets in the comments below as you're watching. Name your number. Okay, so that's 2. So, Misty Pearson had a question. This is the first one that we got in about 3 weeks ago. So Misty was totally on the ball. Good job, Misty. And actually, Misty made this drum that you can see, this bodhrán that's up here. Misty has a shop in the States, and Misty sent me that drum as a present. I was weird with the camera, but so thank you again for your lovely gift, Misty. And I'll actually put a link to Misty's shop in the. I have a notebook here beside me because I always forget to put the links that I say I'm going to put the links. So I'm trying to do better with that. So Misty says, has she read all of your books? And if so, which is her favorite?
Honestly, no, I haven't read all of your books.
A lot of them are pretty intense.
Sorry?
A lot of them are pretty intense, pretty niche.
Yeah, I read the first 2, I think, and maybe a bit then of the third one. And it was like way back, when they came out first. Yeah. So I can only vaguely remember them, but I was just, it's amazing. Like, I talked to friends and that, and generally, like when I was in work, people would say, what do your kids do, or blah, blah. And I say, oh, my eldest daughter writes books. What? They write books? And I just feel great being able to say my eldest daughter is an author, among other things.
Yeah. So
I don't know which ones. I couldn't tell you which ones are which one. What I prefer. I can't fully remember them now, but I love them all because they're yours.
That's fair enough. Like the first one came out, that's Irish Witchcraft from an Irish Witch. So you definitely would have read that one. That was in 2004. Like, so that's a long time ago now. And then I think a Practical Guide to Irish Spirituality was out. Oh, there's been a re-release though. If anybody's interested, there's it's in reprint since 2020 is Irish Witchcraft. And a Practical Guide to Irish Spirituality, you read that one. That was the one where Nana came to the book launch and all that in the Writers' Centre. You would have read that one definitely, because I remember you talking to me about it. And it's out of print currently, but we hope to have it in reprint in 2021, late 2021, maybe 2022. And then I know that we were talking as well about the Tales of Old Ireland. So the third one was actually
I read bits of that one.
Yeah. The third one was Rathcrohan, A Journey, and I don't think I gave you a copy of that one. I don't think you probably would have come across that one. But then Tales of Old Ireland, I think you have read that one, and you said you were liking some of those stories. So we'll I'm not sure the Queen Maeve one now would be, or the Pagan Priesthood one. But the New Fairy Faith one, actually, you might be interested in that one. I just finished writing that, so I think there's bits and pieces in it. Well, I mean, you're in it, so you know you want to. It opens with a story, a memory of walking down a lane in Clare, and we came across a banshee comb, and you freaked at me. You were like, "Don't pick that up! Don't pick that up!" You totally Loreta'd me, and in the nicest possible way. I mean, you're keeping us safe, you know. And then you told me the story about the Bowlers who were, and it's probably my first kind of like fairy story, where they had found a comb and they'd heard the cry of the banshee. They were walking home from one of the fairs and they'd heard the cry of the banshee and found a comb. And I think like one of their cousins was dead the next morning or something. I'm a little bit sketchy on the details.
Yeah, it was one of the Farrells. It was Paddy Farrell. Yeah, Hookie's brother, Paddy, in Tintrim.
That's it. I had it as one of the Tuies, but
no,
like I said, that was a very long time ago. Like it was me and Jennifer, and you were pregnant, so that would have been one of the lads, and I'm not even sure which one. So I mean, at most, probably. If that was Barry, like at most I was 6, but if it was Thomas, then I would have been 4?
About 3.
Yeah. So it's like it's a very early memory. But I have a feeling maybe it was Barry. I think I was more along the kind of the like older, the 5.
Slightly older.
Yeah, because I would have been 5 when like maybe Thomas was at home and didn't come on the walk kind of thing. He would have been too young. So anyway, we were only going up as far as Hookie's anyway, so just up the lane. So you're in it. I've just spoiled the whole thing anyway, so you don't need to read it now if you don't want to. Anyway, that one will be out probably in 2021 at some point. I've just finished writing it, so I need to get it edited
this year.
And published. Yeah, this year. So these just so you know, ma'am, these YouTube videos stay around for a while. So like people will be watching this in in years to come. So it's good to kind of
long under the ground.
Yeah. So wait, no. Well, they might be still watching it when you're long under the ground, but you've a lot of years left in you, for God's sake. So Jessica says, how did you continue to learn from each other as you passed through different stages, especially with varying belief systems? Thanks for doing this. That's an interesting one, because like we have the kind of non-practicing Catholic and me finding paganism and you kind of getting a bit interested in it. So do you want to talk a bit about that? Learning from each other through our different life stages, I suppose, with generally, but like with spirituality as well.
I remember when you first opened up about the paganism and that, and I was kind of blown away because I hadn't really known very much about it, but it seemed to touch a part of me, and it was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense to me, and I felt it very much so, and that feeling has only grown more and more. And even though I don't really practice as such, I would kind of call myself half what would I say, a non-practicing Catholic kind of, I don't class myself as being a Christian because I don't really believe that Jesus was God. I'm sorry if I'm upsetting anybody saying that. I believe he was a great,
you're allowed to have
I
your
believe
own
he was a
belief
great
system.
prophet and that, but I definitely, I'd kind of half call myself a hedge witch, kind of. You know, like at the festivals, I'd light my fire in the garden and I have my candles. I don't know the difference between the different colored candles. There's an awful lot of it that I don't know about, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to delve any deeper into it. I'm happy with the way that I am, and I feel very, very comfortable with the way that I go about things. I don't know, does that make sense?
It does make sense. No, it makes a lot of sense. And I think like Irish people, Irish culture really lends itself to that kind of like just tipping along, especially if you're in any way kind of into nature or gardening or
it's the nature. I was just going to say that like the whole nature-based thing. It speaks to my soul, I suppose. It's the best way of putting it.
And like as well, between like having access to, because we still have that access to County Clare that like you've been going down to all your life, obviously, as have I. And it's very much a second home or even a first home. It's like, it's, you know.
I always say my soul is at peace when I'm there.
Yeah. So, you know, even though we don't live there full time, it's a place that we both, I know, very much share that connection with. And it inspires both of us and has inspired both of us our whole lives, I think, you know, to connect to nature in that way. So like through the different life stages, I mean, just like learning about paganism, but then I kind of went into like professionalism, obviously, that was going on, and like our own kind of relationship then, you know, like I've always thought that there was there was a lot that I would come across and I would incorporate, and, you know, what you're describing there, like as soon as I kind of opened up about it, that it kind of seems to make sense to you. And I've seen you grow a lot. And I mean, I want to kind of commend you for somebody, you know, of your generation and that, you know, I've seen you become very open-minded and activist, you know, in your own way, definitely, about, you know, things that the shifts in culture that Ireland has been going through with, you know, marriage equality and repeal the eighth and all of those things. And, you know, you've been a part of those campaigns. You've been a part of talking to people, especially, again, people of your own generation who maybe wouldn't have access to the insights or the perspectives maybe that you would through me and my circle of friends and that, you know. And I was just wondering, like, would you like to speak to that at all?
In what way?
Like, how have you felt about it? You know, like how the way Ireland's been changing, and, you know,
I think it's all only for the good. And even though I haven't been hugely active, being, you know, a strong activist, if you like. I mean, I don't go out on marches or anything like that, but anytime like that a conversation would come up, I would try to influence somebody to maybe change their mind, somebody who would be more close-minded than me, and try to you know, show a different perspective, if you like, on different things, to try to broaden somebody's mind or open them up a little bit more to understanding, you know, particularly like pro-choice and that kind of thing. I don't know after that.
Yeah. And I think that's actually that's why Ireland has been pretty unique, in that the changes are coming from the bottom up. And it is those conversations that have, you know, swung the elections. It is. And the
Yeah.
marches help. Like, obviously, we need people organizing, we need people marching, we need people campaigning, we need, you know, all of that. But it's all part of the big picture, as is those conversations, you know, with two or three different friends, because those two or three different friends might change their minds and then they start talking to their friends. And like, we've literally seen that in action. That is activism, you know, and like, don't, I would say, like, don't discount your part in that, you know, because everybody, like, even if you weren't out knocking on doors, you know, just, it's hard. Like, it's hard to stand up and have those conversations. It's hard to be that voice that is the only one in the room that is saying, well, you know, hang on a minute here, like, let's have a little think, you know, let's examine this stuff that we have all grown up with, that we never questioned before. Like, let's ask those questions, you know.
Yeah, but I think my own what would I call it? Like, I think I was always fairly open-minded, you know, and I think I got that from my parents, but particularly from my dad.
Yeah.
And he probably was like that because of all the traveling that he did. And like, obviously he was an adult when we lived in Canada, and he would have come in contact with an awful lot more diverse people, if you like, and in England as well. And where he was a bit of a racist, you know. But
the old Irish casual racism.
Yeah, but I always remember, like, he always said to us, and I'm the eldest of 6 children, and I always remember kind of when I got to the stage of when my periods were starting and that, and I vividly remember one time, and we were still living in England, and he was washing the dishes and I was drying them, and he said, without mentioning anything, he just said, now, if you ever have any questions about anything, you can come to me and ask me about them. I know as much as your mammy knows. And there's nothing that you cannot ask me. And for a man like who was born in 1930, a man of his generation, a man.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to, and he said it straight out. And I always felt after that, and I'm sure my siblings did too, that we could go to him and talk to him about anything. And sign is on in later years. Sign is on in later years when, you know, different things happened. He was the first one that I went to.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I just thought that my mum wasn't, she wasn't as approachable, I don't think. And I always felt that he was, and he was always there. There was absolutely no question at all about him not being there.
Yeah.
And always knew that he would kind of break it to her, and that everything would be all right then. But that's where I think I get my open-mindedness from. And that's why I think I said it, I would have said it to you at different times, you know, it doesn't matter what problems you have or anything, you can come to me and talk to me about them, and we'll trash it out and see how things go.
Yeah. And there has never been in our household, there's never been an issue, like, I don't think, for any of us coming to you. And you know, that's a credit to you, and that stands to you and to him as well, you know, Granda Michael. Yeah.
But it's a generational thing. It seems to be, you know, going down the generations, and you learn from your parents, and hopefully they're good lessons that you learn.
Yeah. And I mean, thinking of, you know, different situations, there's some things you learn from your parents that are like what not to do, and that's valuable too, and that's okay. You know, nobody's a perfect parent, you know?
None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect.
Yeah. So speaking of generations,
hi, hello.
She's in the dining room and we're recording, just so you know. That is my middle girl, who is the mother of my grandchild and Loretta's great grandchild. So
card is in there on the little stand thing.
So from Jacqueline, I did warn my mum, you know, don't worry, because we're going to have people passing through. We're going to have parades through. We have to sit in different rooms, so there's no way we don't get busted in on during this interview. So Jacqueline had a question for us both. So what's your favorite heritage site that you've both visited? I've been to Ireland a few times, and my favorite so far has been Newgrange. So I don't know if that means that we've both visited together or like just our own kind of favorites. But I think like growing up, you would have brought us to a lot of heritage sites, like a lot of different. I've always credited you, like I hated it at the time, but you know, it's been the making of me being dragged around to different heritage sites when I was a kid. But we did go on a Patreon site visit, which was interesting. And that was in Kilkenny, wasn't it? And it was just
County Kilkenny. Yeah, County Kilkenny. Yeah.
It was just one of those kind of random out of the way ones that we were walking around for ages trying to find the bits and trying to kind of map what was, you know, what the archaeology was onto the actual landscape. So that was an interesting one. But what's your own favorite? Like, is there a place that you'd go back to that you feel comfortable with?
Heritage sites. I loved the one on one of the Aran Islands. The one, what is it? Dunangus, is it?
Dunangus, yeah.
Dunangus.
Yeah.
I went out there on my own to see that. That really struck a chord with me.
That is an amazing place. It's a big stone fort for anybody who's not, and it's right on the edge of the Atlantic, and just the weight of the history of it just seeps into your soul as soon as you set foot on it. It's amazing. And you have to climb up a load of steps to get to it as well, don't you? It's very well defended.
Yeah, there's a lot that I have yet to see and that I want to go to. Not heritage, but the Cliffs of Moher. I love the Cliffs of Moher.
Well, that's natural heritage. It is a heritage site as well. Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've been there, and I will never ever get tired of going there. Where else? God, there's so many different places. I can't think now.
We went over to the Chachdun over on the island down off Kerry, isn't it? We went on a road trip there as well. That was another site visit, actually. It was me and my sister Jennifer and my mum. Dursey Island.
Or Dursey Island, yeah.
We went there. I've never actually been to Skellig Michael.
I was there with two of my siblings and two in-laws last July, 12 months, so 2019. And my sister Eileen, hi Eileen, she organised the whole thing and booked us in and booked the boat. She's great at organising things like that, absolutely amazing. And we have plans to go to loads of different places as soon as everything opens up. But she organised the whole thing and we went over, and I have to say, I think that was my favourite so far. Just the climb up, like if you Google it, the climb up the steps, and how the monks that lived there and built the beehives and the steps into the rocks, and it's nearly vertical in some places. Going up was no problem. Coming down was a slight problem because I suffer from vertigo and it was not pleasant, but it was doable.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely breathtaking. So I think that's my favorite so far.
And just again for context for anybody who's not familiar with it, that is the island where the most recent Star Wars films have been recorded. So you can see some of so when Luke is on his sabbatical, he's on Skellig Fahil or Skellig Michael, and it's just all those beehive huts and everything like that's not sets. Those are real over on the island. The monks actually lived there. So just for some context for anybody who hasn't seen it.
Thanks. Where else did we go to, Laura? Like, I would have brought you to loads of places. The Giant's Grave.
The Giant's Grave. I'm trying to find the Giant's Grave. I don't even remember what county that was in. But
it would have been on the way home from Clare, and I think it was around Leash Offaly somewhere.
Yeah.
and loads of signposts to it. And eventually we did find it up in the middle of a forest.
Yeah. Irish
but
signposts lie. They just
Yeah.
blatantly lie.
Basically they do. They do.
Yeah.
But that was a very interesting one.
That was an interesting one. And I think there was the four of us there and yourself.
Yeah.
So my siblings and and
Lot
it was
of
like
moaning and groaning.
a lot of moaning and groaning. I think that probably would have been one of the standout ones of like, I hated being dragged around to it. And then when I started
adventure.
when I started my Patreon, that's exactly what I was doing, dragging other people around. Come on, we just have to go and find this one. I think one of my favorites out of everything that I've been to, and again, it's very much in that vein, and you've just kind of reminded me of it. I went to Craiglia, which is the site, the Grey Rock, which is the site of the home of the O'Brien Banshee, Avel, who's a fairy queen in County Clare. And you go to this forest, like there's a forest walk and everything. And like the forest walk goes so far. So I think we'd arrived there about 2:00. Myself and John went to it. And it looked from the map that we could kind of do the forest walk, and it was just beyond that, And I think by the time we'd done the forest walk bit and kind of mapped it out, it was probably around 3 or 4 o'clock. And then we basically spent the next 4 hours, because I know it was 8 o'clock before we even reached it. The next 4 hours, like above the kind of like the cultivated forest walk kind of tree line area, was all that like scrubby mountain, badger holes and no trails. Like you were following kind of deer tracks and like gorse and just moss and ferns and just you're back in prehistoric times basically at the top of this mountain. And literally we were looking for a flat grey rock in all of that on the top of a fucking mountain. I don't know how many times I was about to give up, and John was like, no, come on, we need to find it. And and I'm glad now, because by the time I got up there, and it's part of why it's a favorite for me, it actually was very personally interesting, because Avel, as I mentioned, is the O'Brien Banshee, and O'Brien is the family that I have married into and had my kids into. So and it was my pen name, so it's not my family name, as in like my bloodlines, but I'm still a part of that clan, because I have bred O'Briens. So all of that was kind of, and a lot of stuff came out, and like working with the ancestral ties and everything. And, there's, let's just say there's a history with the O'Brien who, would have given me that name originally. And I kept it for the children basically, and that connection to them and to my, to my grandchild now as well. But yeah, there was a whole thing. So it became a whole thing, like after this epic, and like there's been so many site visits and visiting heritage sites that have really, they have been epic like that, because for such a small island we have a lot of wilderness. We have a lot of wild places, and even places that you think aren't going to be wild turn out to be wild once you get off the beaten track, so that's always interesting. So Danielle, my friend Danielle Malone, I think you might have met Danielle actually at various parties through the year. She's living in Scotland now, but she's a very nice friend of mine. So she said, hi, Laura's Mammy. Perhaps she could talk about her hand knitted dolls. I love my Rosa. And no, I'm not on the wrong side. So this is Rosa.
Yeah.
This is the green haired Rosa. I think this was the first one.
Well, it's not the first one. No, the first one that I made it to have on my desk in work.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was Deirdre, the black and purple one. That was my very first one. And I just made it for Halloween, and I had it on my desk. And then when I left work, I brought it home from work and had it on my fireplace, and you spotted it and you said, would I make one for you? So I made that one for you. So that's the second one.
And
then
you gave her the green hair, which I had at the time. It's purple now, but it was green at the time. And you called her Rosa after Rosa Parks, the activist. And I have to say, I have a lot of things in my life that I'm proud of, and that is one of them. Definitely, it's up there. Like, but then you went on to make a whole series of them, didn't you?
I did. Somebody contacted me, George Harmon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm friends with him too on Facebook, and I've never met him. But he contacted me, and he was setting up a little online business, and asked me would I make a series of them to sell on through his site, which I have done. There's 13 of them now, which I believe is the number that's in a coven.
Yes.
And they're all different, and it's amazing, making them, like, they're all made basically to the same pattern, but their faces, there are no two faces the same, even though they've all just got the two eyes and the little mouth. Yeah. But
they all have their own personalities. They do. They get imbued.
Yeah, they're all totally different. Their faces are all totally different, which is very strange.
Yeah.
And I tried to make them the same, but they never come out the same.
That's all right. They have minds of their own. It's fine.
They do. They do. They take on a life of their own. Yeah. But they're cute. Yeah. They're cute.
What's George's website's name again? Do you remember? Crafty.
Oh, crikey.
Is it Crafty Witch? We'll put a link.
Crafty Witch. Yes, it is. Crafty Witch,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Crafty Witch.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'll put a link below, so check that out if you want to. And they're I can't remember what the collection name is. I'll put a direct link to the collection.
Companions, something companions.
Witchy companions. That's it.
Yeah, witch companions or something.
Could have done our homework a bit better on this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Links will be below.
I should know. I just blank.
You do the creation. That's all George's part of it, So
no, my memory's not great anyway. So
all right. I'll probably get that from you as well. So Derek says, we've kind of jumped now. This is jumping around a bit. We'll go back to 3 weeks ago. A little bird says, what were her thoughts after the first time she went to an event with you? I presume this is a witchcraft event or a pagan event. Where and how was it? And did you have any trepidation beforehand? So there's actually two here. So we'll go for that one first, because you have been to a couple of pagan events over the years. So do you remember your first one?
It probably would have been the what are they called? Yeah, Féile. Yeah. That probably would have been one of the first ones that I went to with you.
And I was organising that, so it was kind of, I definitely wasn't around to hold your hand. Myself and Barbara Lee organised the Féile, the Festival of Irish Magic and Spirituality events from like 2003 to, I can't remember what year we finished in, but they were annual events most years. We took a couple of breaks for personal stuff. I think 2009 and a few other years. So they were running intermittently some years, but most years from 2003 up until, I can't remember when they finished. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so
but before that, I would have been out to have a little visit with Barbara. Barbara Lee. I was out in her house one time and had a big discussion way back in the mists of time, that was. And she would have kind of taught me a bit as well. I would have learned a bit from her. But after that, then, no, there was never any trepidation involved in it. It was all, from my perspective, the more I was involved, I suppose, or the more things that I witnessed or heard about, or that it was learning. I was learning stuff about it, and I suppose initially because it was so important to you, but also I was finding it more and more important to me as well. From my own knowledge and my own satisfaction, if you like.
Yeah.
So,
and Mam is an artist as well, a painter and a crafter. Some fantastic crafts through the years.
Not very good.
excuse me, some beautiful paintings and beautiful crafts, and is a very, very talented. Stop it. Oh my goodness. This is where, if this was me and John now, this is where you have to say 3 nice things about yourself if you self-deprecate. So I won't. I'm putting you on the spot enough, but you know, I want you to text me 3 nice things about yourself later on. Okay, it's important to redress the balance because we have awful
good
voices.
heart.
Oh, good. Yes, awesome.
Good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm kind.
Good. Yes. Agreed. It is very
good
important.
Heart, good intentions, and yeah.
No, it's very important to redress the balance because we get a lot of horrible, nasty things said in our own heads, I think, and out loud sometimes. That so it's important to balance those out. So but you also have exhibited at Féile Dréachta over the years, and taken various stalls and stands and at craft fairs and everything. So you've been quite into the culture from both sides of it, both as an attendee and as part of the event itself. So, and just again for context, Barbara Lee that was mentioned there, who was my co-organizer for Féile Dréachta and who my mum was talking about going out to her house there, is a Wiccan high priestess that I met when I was 18. And there's a whole interview. She's kind of like my witch mammy through the years. We still have a very good relationship. And she's been very close to my family, I think, to most of us, through the years. And I'll put a link to, there's an interview with her as well on this channel. So I'll put a link to Barbara's interview in the notes below as well. So the second part of A Little Bird's question is, here's one that's not so pointed towards spirituality. What was Lora like when she was a wee babe? Are there any noteworthy stories? Oh, no, wait, maybe we should skip this one. Are there any noteworthy stories or silly or odd things that Lora liked to do? And this was seconded by this old homestead. So yeah, what was I like when I was a baby?
You were very, very advanced for your age. I remember for your first birthday, your father taught you, how old are you? Put up your finger 1. You weren't fully talking at the time, but you completely understood what was going on. It's a long time ago.
It is. I turned 43 this year. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. You were just normal. Like, you weren't, there was nothing bad anyway, that's for sure. You were a great kid. And
I believe you have told me before that I was very stubborn and willful.
Oh, well, yeah. You were, yes. Yeah, well, yeah. Kind of more, that was more kind of in the teens when, puberty and that, you start to get really, really stubborn. You had been a little bit before that, but you were great at looking out for your younger siblings. You were more careful, I think, with the boys than with Jennifer, I think, from memory, like when you were much younger. But nothing really stands out specifically.
Story-wise.
I just loved you. Yeah, you just...
You told me once when you went back to work after I was born that Nana rang you up. Nana was minding me.
Oh, God.
There was that one. So you can tell that one.
Yes,
I know
you were probably, 6. Yeah. You were 6 months old, and Mammy, of course, you were the first grandchild, and my mother was minding you, and she had been feeding you, and that was grand. Everything was grand, and then she took you out of the high chair, or the chair that you've been sitting in, and she rang me in an awful state altogether in work. And Loretta, what is wrong with Lora. She will not let me hug her. Every time I go to hug her, she just puts her two hands up and pushes me away. And that's it. And you were 6 months old. Like, you were just, and you were never a hugger. You were never really into being hugged, and only on your terms, only when you wanted it to be. And I think you're still like that as well.
I am.
So
Much.
I don't know where you got that from, because well, probably from the Goulding side.
There is,
because the Moore side is all very tactile, and huggy,
yes.
and kissy and everything, and emotional and that, whereas the other side of your heritage has been, or genetics has been, cold fish. Basically.
Yeah, and there's probably neurodivergence issues going on there as well. My eldest has recently been diagnosed as autistic, and my youngest is in the process. And as I've been going through that process, I've kind of, there's a lot of stuff making sense, you know, that kind of
yeah.
That. But I mean, at the time we wouldn't have known. I mean, even at the time when my kids were born, I wouldn't have known, you know. So there definitely wasn't the same resources back then to kind of figure shit like that out.
I wouldn't have even known what that was. I would never have heard that terminology or anything to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anybody who meets me at events, you have it on the word of my own mother and my grandmother that I don't touch me. Okay. Just don't touch me.
Exactly.
I don't like hugs. You know, fist bumps maybe. But,
yeah. And it's got nothing to do with COVID.
No, nothing to do with COVID. Definitely pre-COVID. But yeah, I've always been like that. And it's very true. I kind of, you know, I can be tactile with some people, but it really has to be when I'm comfortable and when I'm on my own terms, you know. So
yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. And if you're like that as well, that's okay, you know.
Yeah, that's allowed. Yeah, it's your body.
Exactly. Consent is important. So Hills says, what do you appreciate the most about living in Ireland?
It's home. It's where I'm from. It's where my roots are. And whenever I go away, even if it's only for a long weekend, a city break, when travel was allowed, flying back into Dublin Airport and seeing Ireland again is just so emotional to me. I'm coming home. I don't know, I presume everybody would feel that way about coming back to their homeland. I don't know if they do.
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, people would report that definitely, but there seems to be a very strong connection between Irish people and our homeland, you know, and that's definitely carried through, like obviously to our, you know, people whose ancestors have traveled from the homeland. Like there's always this longing, there's always this gra, I call it, you know, the love, like in Irish, for the island, like for the physical connection.
For the land, it's literally for the ground. It's like an invisible cord there that's tying you to it. I don't know really how to describe it properly.
Yeah.
It's a huge love for it.
Yeah.
And that's why through so many generations, people fought for it and died for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely shows through our history. We never give it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Irish people would echo that and would feel very similarly. And I have thought about this a lot, and I think that it is in part, at least, like it's only in our most recent generation or two that we don't have a very physical and tangible connection to our locality, you know, to our communities, you know, so the land and the people like that would physically surround you every day. Like we've always been very, very tied into it culturally and socially, you know, even down to like knowing the names of the different fields and, you know, the way like even cars are only a relatively recent invention, you know, and cars have kind of separated us as we're traveling around the island from you know, where it used to be on the bicycles or just walking, or, you know, on the donkey and cart, or the horses, or wherever it'd be, you know. And like, I think in the context, like in an international context, certainly in Western culture, like we held on to that a lot longer than most places would have, you know. And we are tied in for a lot, we're deeply rooted in for a lot, you know, through a lot more generations, specifically, say, than, you know, other countries that would have had colonization and, you know, all of that. Like, so the people living on the land are not necessarily the indigenous people to the land. So obviously that makes a difference. But yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Moonraven said, good afternoon, Laura. I would love to know, what were some of your mom's favorite Irish recipes? And what is your favorite tea that you like to sip on? Thank you. And I can't wait to see the interview.
Okay, well, my most favorite tea is Barry's tea or green tea with lemon. But mostly I drink coffee. I love coffee. Favorite recipes. Okay, favorite recipes. I love coddle, which is a Dublin dish. Or my mother used to call it boiled sausages and onions, which sounds very, very strange to an awful lot of people outside Dublin, because sausages are usually fried and they're brown, whereas in coddle, you boil the sausages and bacon usually and onions. And then when they're boiled, then you take all that out, and the water that's left, you add milk to it and you make a white sauce. You thicken it and make a white sauce. And that's basically what coddle is. Another good one is...
there's a big war in Irish Twitter that's kind of ongoing about brown or white coddle. And I'm just adding my voice. Yeah, no, brown. I'm adding my voice to the white coddle pile.
Well, that is traditionally, it's white. Yeah, it's white.
So like we don't make gravy coddle.
Some people put carrots into it. As well as the onion, but it was, and it was, I suppose it was going back, and how it was started was, it was a cheap dish, you know, when people didn't have very much money.
It's poverty food, definitely. Yeah.
You know, and you bought the cheapest sausages, put an onion in, and maybe a few rashers or a bit of bacon if you had left over from.
And there would have been other pig parts put into coddle, I think, traditionally as well. It wasn't just
maybe going back,
going back.
But another good one was the first time I had it was when we came home from England when I was 12, nearly 13, and we went for dinner one day to an aunt and uncle in Clontarf, and Auntie Tressa made Bullwall special, because they live near the Bullwall, which is in Clontarf, in Dublin. And she called it Bullwall special, and it was basically mince beef stew with onion again in it, and carrots and whatever else you wanted to throw into it, and thickened. And that's basically what it was, but it was called Bullwall special. But I think she named it that. I don't think that was
probably. Yeah. And we used to eat that as well. And you throw an old packet of like soup into it as well, dehydrated soup or whatever was going, whatever was in the cupboard, really.
Soup or bit of gravy granules, and thicken it up. And it's still one of my favorite dishes.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Lasagna, I love lasagna too.
Would you put potatoes in the Bullwall special or not? Would they go in for the one pot?
I usually do I do the potatoes separate.
Like in a mash?
Yeah, mash them. Yeah. And the same with the coddle, do the separate. Yeah.
Some people, it would be, again, like going back probably to your parents' generation and before, those kind of dishes would have been definitely like a one pot meal, you know. But
economical.
Exactly, yeah. Like cooking wise, fuel wise, all that kind of stuff. You just threw everything into the same or an else stew or whatever. Like, so a lot of traditional Irish food is the one pot or stuff that can be cooked together like that, you know.
Plus the fact too, like it's only in recent years, really, in my generation onwards, but going back to my parents and beyond generations, they wouldn't have been so much into all the different herbs and everything. Okay, there would have been parsley and thyme there, maybe a bit of sage, but that's about all. Like, they wouldn't have been very conversant with, you know, all the other oregano and coriander and, you
seasonings,
know, cumin and all those kind of things. Whether they wouldn't have had access to it, or they wouldn't have had the knowledge about them either.
Ireland has been quite like monocultural that way, and obviously you can trace that right back to, you know, the famine, where we were growing a very diverse range of foods and producing a very diverse range of foods. We don't call it the potato famine, just for anybody who isn't familiar with that already. In Irish, we actually call it An Gcúirt Mór, the Great Hunger, and it is one of the famines. Usually you'd only hear about one, but a lot of our food was being shipped out by the landlords, both some Irish landlords, but a lot of them would have been English landlords who would have been put in by the Crown in England and gifted lands in Ireland, and were able to take the cream of the crops, literally, and all of our resources. And the Irish then were left with, this is where the whole potato thing, the potato was not Irish, but we were basically left with that. It was our famine food. It was our I won't call it. It was our worker food, because it's actually kind of a complete meal, and within our limited time and our limited resources, the workers would have been able to grow potatoes, because they were relatively easy to grow, and this has led to a lot of misunderstanding. I read in an English textbook once where it was basically being lifted off that, like, they were calling the potato drills the lazy beds, and saying that it was very easy for Irish people to just grow these potatoes. So basically that's all that they grew, you know. And I was like, there's like 95% of that context that's being left out of that. You know, when you come home after a 12-hour day, yes, you need something easy that you can feed your family with. But anyway,
that's full of vitamins and an awful lot of goodness in the potatoes anyway.
Yeah, but our seasonings, our seasonings would have been a bit of buttermilk, some pepper, and butter. And butter if you had it, and some salt. And that would have been, and maybe some forage greens, nettles, or, you know, whatever, a bit of cabbage if you had
wild garlic when it was in season, maybe. Yeah.
So we do have a very plain palate. And part of it is, you know, colonization. Part of it is just that we have been a monoculture for a very long time, and with very little diversity within our kind of native culture, you know, with regard to
culinary wise.
Yeah, culinary wise, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's we get slagged a lot, you know, and I think that's why I went off on that tangent. We get slagged a lot for, you know, not being able to handle spicy food, and I just want to shove my finger in those people's faces and say, colonization fuckers, you know. So anyway, I remember actually as a child hearing a story about the Aran Islands, probably in the 1800s or maybe early 1900s. And somebody was traveling in, it was some fucking English guy was traveling in the Aran Islands, and he was writing his, you know, his journeys with the peasantry kind of thing. And he brought oranges, and, like, you know, the local people had never seen an orange. They'd never, I mean, for anybody again who doesn't know, the Irish climate doesn't exactly sustain a lot of like Mediterranean herbs or, you know, citrus fruits or anything like that. So so that is definitely another factor in it. But yeah, the people had never seen an orange, and he thought this was the most quaint thing that he'd ever heard, you know. But I remember being shocked at that as a child, you know, and thinking like that's only a couple of generations ago, you know. So Yeah. So from the list again, let me just go. Kind of lost my place there. Sorry. Shimmy says, how much of yourself do you see in Lora? And also, as a granny, do you feel even the slightest bit of satisfaction when the granny kids act out in a similar way that she may have? Stubbornness, ? In an amusing way, of course. So I'm a recent grandmother. My grandchild is turning 1 very shortly as we record this. So how much of yourself do you see in me? And does it give you satisfaction when my own kids kind of play out?
I get huge satisfaction, not just with you, but all of my children when their own kids act up, and I'm there going. How much of myself do I see in you? I find it very hard to see any of myself in any of my kids, really. I suppose you would have you'd have like the love for the land and the folklore, and well, it's one thing that I've passed on to you.
And the ancestry, the family history and all that stuff as well.
Yeah, and nature, that would have come down from my dad too. My dad bringing us on, the nature walks and that through forests and pointing out the trees and the bushes and the plants and all that kind of thing. So he's responsible for a lot of that. I don't know where he got it from because he was only 13 when his dad died, and his mother was trying to rear 9 children. So she wouldn't have had a lot of time for doing that either. So it was probably just a natural instinct in him. But yeah, I mean, I suppose resilience, Lora, strength. I've had to be strong, and I've seen the same strengths coming out in you as well. Being soft-hearted in a lot of ways, getting emotional.
You ruin my reputation. Everybody thinks I'm a bitch. Don't tell them I have a good side.
You have a soft side. I just point out the first 2 questions there, and
3 times. We're 3 for 3.
3 times. Okay. But apart from that, I don't know. I mean, every generation, I suppose, learns from the one before it. As you said earlier, the things not to do as well as the things to do. And hopefully there would be a lot that you would have maybe picked up from me, good and bad.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just want to point out as well, Granda, when I don't even remember what age I was, very young, he used to bring myself and Jennifer out to the Bull Wall bird watching. And he bought me a membership, which was a magazine membership for the Young Ornithologist Club, which I think was an English organisation that covered Ireland as well. There wouldn't have been anything like that in Ireland at the time, certainly. Not publishing magazines, there probably was clubs and that, but yeah, do you remember what age I was when he bought?
No, but I'd say you were probably only maybe around 7, 8-ish.
If even, 6, 7. That's where I would have put it, around 7, I think. Because obviously I was, able to read the magazines. Some of it was beyond me now, in fairness. But I was able to read most of it, and so we'd get I think it was a monthly delivery, and I'd get it and I'd go through it, and then on a Sunday morning he'd bring us out to Anne's Park and out to the Bull Wall, and we'd go walking and see what we could spot. He had his really good binoculars that he kind of very gingerly handed over at some points, but yeah, it was that's a very good memory, and he passed it on to you, and definitely you passed it on to me as well. Some of my earliest kind of pagan experiences, I remember walking in a lane in Clare, and I went to catch a butterfly. So I must have been very young, because I got excited at a red admiral butterfly, I remember, because he told me. But it lifted off a flower, and I went to catch it in my hand, and he shouted at me, And so obviously, you know, it stuck with me, you know, because he was kind of angry, like, and he went on to explain very gently after that, you know, he just kind of had a reaction, but he went on to explain why. And I remember feeling both like, he went on to explain that, you know, when you touch a butterfly, there's a powdery kind of coating on the butterfly's wings, and if you wipe it off, they're not able to fly anymore, and then they can't go around to the flowers, and then the flowers don't get pollinated, and you know, there was a whole process and a whole cycle, and maybe they don't have butterfly babies. And like, he just brought me into the whole magic of like this tiny little life cycle, you know, but also the impact that it had on its surroundings. So it wasn't just the impact on the butterfly, it was the impact on the whole, like the ecosystem basically, you know. And like, he brought it all the way up to the trees, you know, and it was just such an amazing experience. And it's definitely one of my earliest like pagan connection, like the realization that everything is connected and that there's an energy and a life force in everything, and it all works together like that, you know. So yeah, there's
a reason for everything.
Exactly. So yeah, there's definitely a lot. I mean, and all the things you listed out there, that's a lot of my character right there, you know. It's a lot of makes me who I am and able to do the work that I can do as well, you know, in the world. So Veronica says, hello, how's it going? What's your mother's favorite song? It's the Eagles, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love the Eagles. I just love the Eagles. Any of the 60s, 70s music. I'm a bit of a hippie.
That's okay.
I suppose late 60s, even though I was quite young. But even now, if any of the late 60s or early 70s music comes back, I was mad into David Essex and Mark Bolan, T-Rex, Mark Bolan. But yeah, no, I favorite song. God,
you bought a record player. You bought a record player.
I bought a real record player.
Vinyl. Yeah. What records have you bought?
I've got Cat Stevens, Tea for the Chiller Man. I love one of the songs on Father and Son. I love that song. Mm-hmm. I have Fleetwood Mac. I don't know an awful lot of them, and I'm absolutely brutal for songs' names.
Yeah,
me too. Start playing and I'll know it and I can sing along to it, but I'm brutal for remembering the names of them. And the third LP that I've bought is the Eagles' Greatest Hits.
So what's your favorite Eagles song?
Oh God, you see, names again. Names. Can't fucking think of the names.
Doesn't matter. Put you on the spot. It's no problem.
But all the songs, Desperados, I love Desperados, and that's one of them. Take It to the Limit. It's
okay.
I can't think now.
It's grand.
Yeah, all the ones on the Greatest Hits LP.
The Crafty Kayak, whose YouTube channel you should all check out. Again, I'll put a link to that below. Amy is doing some great content over there.
And she bought one of my witches.
She did buy one of your witches, yeah. So question for the Mammy. Lora talks a lot about you bringing her and her siblings to different heritage sites and places around Ireland when they were young. How much do you think that influenced the work she is doing, and how important, in your opinion, is it that parents in Ireland bring their children to places to learn about history and heritage? Also, absolutely love your bewitching companions. So that's obviously what they're called. The bewitching companions. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think it's very important. Sorry, are you finished?
No, that's it. Yeah. How important?
I think it's very important, and that's why, probably without even thinking about it or realizing it at the time, I would have dragged you along to it because it was what I was interested in, and I wanted to learn more about it. I've always loved history, and I would have, I suppose, hoped to get G involved in and go along with my love of it, and that some of it would rub off on ye, never thinking for a minute where that would all lead, and down that rabbit hole, so far down it that you would go, or any of you would go. But I'm hugely grateful that I did bring you there, because it obviously laid the groundwork and the starting off point for you when you eventually got out of your stubborn humor and being dragged around here again. Do you remember the visit to the Hellfire Club?
I do. I really do. Yeah, that the Hellfire Club is up in the Dublin Mountains.
Yeah.
And fascinating place, completely fucking haunted. Yeah, that was spooky fun. That was good.
Yeah, but it was really, now to be quite honest, it was really more for myself. And I was the fact, even the thought of me being allowed to go off on a Sunday afternoon on my own without the children, leave the children at home with their father, that never ever presented itself. That scenario was never going to be a thing. So the children always had to go with me. So they had to, whether they wanted to or not, they had to come with me. And I think you all got something out of it. Maybe some more than others. But
those are experiences that you could never get back. And kids, I think kids don't remember
your horizons.
Exactly,
maybe.
Yeah. And even two of our brothers ended up our two brothers ended up living away from Ireland, and one of them still is out in Australia, and one has come home and is married up in the north of Ireland. And I think, even I'm not going to speak for them now, but that connection that would have been fostered through those visits, and through learning and through seeing it and experiencing it, that's just invaluable, and would have connected them to home in a way, and sustained them in some ways as well, I think. Now that's me presuming. Obviously I haven't walked in their shoes, but I know Thomas has a huge interest in Irish history, and he's a songwriter, and I'll put his stuff, link that below. And even though myself and Thomas probably would have been the most obviously influenced by it, I suppose. But even at that, Jennifer would be in the census archives and digging through stuff and getting excited and sending us texts. And Barry would definitely, my youngest brother, would definitely be, he'd have his moments as well. Barry doesn't get excited about much now, but he'd have his moments of getting impassioned about something through the years, and even Barry ended up picking up the trade, my granddad's trade, cabinet making, and he went on with the woodworking and that, but just as a hobby, but that would have been an influence, I think, from that connection to nature as well. There's definitely part of that, and
well, he's all into going out into the outback wild camping, into, okay, he's in Australia, but he the rougher it is, the better for him. And he's now bringing his son and getting his son involved in all that. So it's trickling down. But I think it's very important, just answering the question there, to show your children as much, give them as many experiences, no matter what they are or where they are, to just open their mind and broaden their horizons, and show them all the different things that they can do and see and go to. The more the better, the better. Overload. I would.
Definitely. But it's also important to show stuff that you're passionate in and you're connected to. If you're only phoning it in, then they're going to pick up on that as well. If you're taking a box, and that was never the case with you, and you know, it affected us all in very different ways, but it still had that impact because, you know, that's what you were passing on, was that passion and that love of it, you know. So so yeah, I think like getting interested in your own heritage and your own history and your own ancestry and like whatever that looks like, because that's going to look different for everybody, every Irish person, you know. But being able to then, you know, pass that on then and just, you know, share that joy with your kids is really like where it's going to be the most impactful, I think. Fernanda said, just found your YouTube channel. Hello from Brazil. So hello, Fernanda. There was no question, but that's okay. So Ronnie says this, Ronnie's a great commenter. He comments on every video on my channel. He's brilliant. Thank you, Ronnie. This question is for you both. If you could live in any time of history besides this era, what would you choose? Date and country?
Oh, crikey.
Oh. I think like for all the shortened life expectancy, like I would love to be in the Iron Age of Ireland, or even before that, even in the Bronze Age, maybe. The Iron Age is very kind of warlike, I think, but although that might fit me too. I could probably do well there. But like way back prehistory, I think for me, I'm completely fascinated by that culture, and like more modern Irish history, like, you know, once we get into kind of gunpowder era, like 1500s, it kind of loses me a bit, not much, but, you know, loses me a bit at least. But anything prehistory, pre-records kind of, that's my grandson, I think, is it? Yeah. Loretta's great grandson has just come into the room off camera.
I think I would, I have a fascination with the Viking era. I don't think I'd like to live in any of them, to be quite honest. But I often think, you know, I'd love to be able to time travel, go back, you know, maybe spend a day in loads of different eras, like the Tudor era. I'm fascinated with that as well. But not so much the persecution, obviously. Yeah, the Viking era is a thing for me as well. But yeah, I know what you're saying though, Laura, about back in nearly like prehistory, if you like, to be able to see what it was like, and maybe to witness the mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and all that kind of thing.
Bears in Ireland.
Yeah, the bears, even the wolves, without getting into danger.
If we could do it safely.
Yeah.
Keep your arms and legs inside the cart at all times.
Fly on the wall kind of a thing. But I don't know. I would also, definitely, I would love to have been around in Dublin in 1916, definitely. And to witness an awful lot of what was going on. You know, I would have loved to have been outside the GPO when the proclamation was read, to hear Pádraig Pearse read the proclamation. Yeah. All that whole week, when it was all going on. My grandmother was a runner. At that time, she was a member of Cumann na Mán. Yeah, she was a member of Cumann na Mán. And
this is Granda's mom, is it?
Yes. Yeah. And she, it was obviously before she was married, but she, I don't know how old she would have been, probably late teens, maybe early 20s. I'm not 100% sure. But she, as they called it, being a runner. So she ran with messages. She brought messages from the GPO to Boland's Mills, and probably up to Stephen's Green as well. And one time when she was crossing O'Connell Bridge, it's funny, it's a funny story kind of in a way. She was stopped by an English soldier and he searched her. She had a message, but he didn't find it. So he let her go. But he without us being told it, I would say that he did a bit of groping.
Yeah.
Because on her way back, this is going to sound a bit peculiar now to some people.
Maybe a content warning for, I think I know where this is going actually. But yeah, I don't even know what a content warning for.
No, but it's I mean, you know,
it was times of war. It was war.
It was a time of war, yeah. But he was after being shot. He was lying dead on the ground, and she stepped over him and
she spat on him.
Can I say it?
Yeah,
she spat on him.
Yeah.
She spat on him.
Yeah.
And the English soldiers were called Tommies. And I always remember my father saying to all of us, you know, if you ever have a child, you know, you're not allowed to go out with anybody called Thomas. And if you ever have a child, you know, I really don't want you to call them Tommy. And ironically, when I got married, my father-in-law's name was Thomas, and my husband wanted our first son if we had him called Thomas, and which was fine. It was actually grand, but I always remember I felt a little bit cringy kind of saying it to my dad that, you know, his name is going to be Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that's fine because Thomas was his first grandson.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
And there was never, obviously,
there was never
a
problem. But that was just a hangover from his mother. Yeah. And he had held her in such high esteem and high regard that, you know, he, you know, but he didn't carry through on, you know.
He didn't zone anyone on the back of it, like.
No, he didn't. No, but she was, I think she was a very strong person, a very strong character. Like I said earlier, that I don't really remember her very well. I don't have great memories of her because we would have been in England and, you know, Canada and England in my formative years, if you like, growing up. I think she died, I think I was 15 or 16 when she died. So I was nearly 13 coming home from England. So I would have only known her for about 2 or 3 years. And she was always just this old woman just sitting in the corner, and all the other grandchildren who were reared in Dublin, they would have had a much closer relationship with her. We were the ones that were kind of standing in the corner, although my sister Eileen says that she has great memories of her. So I don't know, maybe she was there more often than I was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Being a bit younger, maybe there was kind of a, you know, if you were only a teenager, like, so
yeah,
there wouldn't have been the same closeness.
I was very shy, and you know, at that time too, and I kind of just remember standing in the corner of the kitchen, you know, and the younger ones all being around her, but I didn't have. But she was
she had an interesting life, didn't she? She was a widow.
She was very strong. Yeah, my father was the third youngest, fourth youngest of 9, and he was 13 when his father died. And but my grandfather had a business making baby clothes, layettes as they were called, and they supplied my grandmother worked with him, and then my father's eldest sister, Auntie Mary, she worked in the business as well, and subsequently then Granny and Auntie Mary carried on the business, and they supplied Clearys and Guineys in Dublin,
big department stores,
with the baby layettes, which, like, I don't know if you remember flannelette material, like very soft cotton, but kind of a fleece. You get flannelette sheets now, but that type of material, cream and white, and they'd be Auntie Mary made a load of them actually when you were born, and gave me a load of them. They were like very long dresses, if you like, but sleeveless dresses. They'd be worn underneath long dresses and little vests. And
the baby sets had the hand knitted cardigans and booties and little hats and stuff in them, didn't they?
Yeah. So like she made enough of a living to you know, to rear rear the rest of the children and
keep the house in Clontarf.
Keep the house in Clontarf, yeah, on Vernon Avenue. A big, huge house, lovely house. And so they must have been doing fairly okay out of the business.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, like when I started my own business, that would have actually been quite an influence on me, that like my grandfather, so your father, ran his own business. He was a cabinet maker, and he had, for anybody who knows IKEA in Dublin, the garage across from IKEA in Ballymun, where I would have been born and reared, kind of thing. There was a 2-bay hay shed behind where the garage is now, across from IKEA there. And that was where I think his first business started in his shed, though, in the back garden, right? And then moved up to the 2-bay hay shed, and they had Moorcraft fitted kitchens, and they would have, my uncles worked with him as well. And they, so yeah, his kind of, and he was very enterprising. Now, my father would have been as well. My father was a great one for ideas, and you know, there was always some scheme on the go.
He was a great salesman. He could sell sand to the Arabs.
Which one now, Dad or Brandon?
He made 3 fortunes, you know, in his adult life, and you know, went through them. Like, that was how he came home from Canada initially. He was a salesman, and he was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners, and had a team of people working under him, going door to door, and made enough money to bring himself and 4 children then at that stage home, and then bought a hotel down in Enniscrone in County Sligo and built that up. And then that was sold, and times got hard again, and went to England and did all kinds of work in England, and learned carpentry in England, and then came home then and set up his business then, the Moorcraft fitted kitchens then. And my 2 brothers went into it, did their apprenticeships, and ended up being carpenters as well.
Yeah. So I have like I would work quite strongly with ancestry, and actually you can't see it, but over my office desk here is a picture of my granddad in his youth, for just that reason, actually. And I've often thought there's another picture that I've seen on Facebook of his mother as well, in the storeroom or something. It's the black and white one. My Auntie Eileen posted it on Facebook there recently, and I actually want to print that off and get a copy and put it there, because I feel that like that kind of business side of things, and connecting with people, and you know, being able to support a family, and as you say, like, you know, making fortunes. I'm down for making fortunes. I'll sign up for that as well.
Yeah.
And big houses and all the rest of it, like, you know. But you know, that I feel that that's in the blood as well, and is carried through the ancestry. So like, your spirituality can have very practical impact as well on your life, you know, and you can incorporate both, kind of honoring your family and honoring your physical ancestry, as well as like that kind of spiritual ancestral element. Yeah, that's very much where that came from for me, I think. We're almost finished these questions, Mom.
That's okay.
So this question, this is from Miss K. Thanks, Ronnie, for that question. And we kind of went off on a tangent there as well.
I hope I'm answering these all right.
Oh, you're great. You're great. It's all good. People on my YouTube channel are well used to just like, they'd put a video like this on in the background and be going around their house, or like making dinner, or, you know, anything like that. So they love a bit of conversation. It's some of my most popular videos are the long kind of interview style ones. So Miss K says, I'm so happy to hear that Mrs. Lora, your mother, will be in your interview. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see her. Lots of emojis. Thanks, Miss K. I would like to ask about her opinion on you in 3 parts. Right? So you've kind of probably covered this a little bit now, probably, I'm sure. But specifically, what is your opinion about your daughter as a great author of history of Irish and Irish language? So what is your opinion? You've definitely covered that one.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's absolutely fantastic. I'm so, like, pride doesn't even go anywhere near covering how I feel about her. She's just, there are no words.
Okay, we've covered. It's fine. Thank you. So part 2 is about the teaching of Irish paganism. A lot of people's had not knowledge about the Irish paganism because Miss Kay is one of the people who had zero knowledge about Irish history and paganism in general. So what do you think about the teaching of Irish paganism?
Teaching as in schools, or
well, I suppose like what we would do, like at the Irish Pagan School, we try and pass on that history and that heritage.
Yeah.
You know, so like what would be
knowledge is never a burden to carry. It's always, I think it's always good to learn, even if you don't possibly believe in it yourself or take it on board yourself as a belief. But it does no harm, no more than any other religion or code of life or practice. The more you know, the more you can make good judgments and decisions about and pick what you want to, what you believe in or what you want to follow, or the route that you want to go down. So no, knowledge is always good, always.
Awesome. And the last question we have definitely covered. Which book is your favorite by Lora O'Brien? So we'll call it the first one.
Take your pick. They're all good.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to the fairies one.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that one. So Derek says, Derek Healy is one of our students here at the Irish Pagan School. He says, echoing the ask about recipes and sites and learning from each other in different life stages. What was your experience, ma'am, as a woman in Ireland as the rise of feminism began? So that would have been probably like the 60s before we started hearing about stuff. Any stories from your mom or grandmom about voting or any other women's political issues, and any stories about paying the rounds at Holywell? So those are two different things. So we'll go with the rise of feminism. I mean, you've kind of you've touched on it a little bit with the women of the revolution. And actually, the Crafty Kylioch has done a brilliant video. Again, I'll link that below, on the women of the Irish Revolution, which I think you'd really enjoy, ma'am, actually. So I'll send you the link to that and I'll post it below. But do you have any kind of personal stories about that, about voting or getting the pill?
Not about voting in particular, but one thing, like I got married in 1977, in October 1977, and only, I don't know whether it was in January or February that year, the same year that I got married, the ban on married women working was lifted in Ireland. It's that close, and you know that once you got married, you had to leave work, and that was tied in the Constitution, Eamon de Valera, all that kind of thing. You know, the woman's place was in the home, tied to the kitchen sink, rearing the children. That's all she was good for, basically. Now I know it's a very important job, you know, to rear the children and to run a house, etc.
You don't need a fucking vagina to do it, like, you know.
No, you don't. And you know, the fact that you weren't allowed work.
Yeah.
That, you know, that was the bit that used to get me. That you weren't allowed work, even if you wanted to. You know, or a lot of women got married and never had children.
Yeah. What are they doing all day?
Had to sit at home twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah.
That was one thing. And another thing that I specifically remember, there was never a question of not being able to vote in my lifetime, thank God. But I remember in the very, I suppose it was before I got married, or maybe around the time, no, it would have been before I got married, I think. I can't remember the actual name of it, but it came up recently. There was something about it. There was a march about a march in town from Parnell Square down through O'Connell Street, being safe at night, what's that march? There was a march called the movement, the right to the night, or
something like that.
Something like that. That women have the right to walk the streets at night and be safe.
Yeah.
And like it's going on, you know, since then. I went on that march, and I'm not sure, there was somebody else with me. It could have been Marion or maybe Eileen, I can't remember. But like it's, you know, it's not only a new thing, is what I'm trying to say. It's gone back to, you know, 30 odd years ago or 40 odd years ago.
Yeah. And we're still fighting the same fucking battles.
We're fighting for it that long. Yeah. And we still can't, in some areas, we still can't walk the streets safely at night on our own in this day and age, which is so wrong.
Yeah, definitely. When did we get contraception in Ireland? I know that there used to be like the train that went up. There was the Underground Railroad basically up to Belfast.
That was in the 70s.
That was in the 70s.
Yeah, that was in the 70s.
Nell McCafferty was involved in that, wasn't she?
Yeah. But there was like when I got into a serious relationship, I could go to the women's clinic and get the pill and that. So it was in, and the condoms and that were in. So it would have been, that would have been 75, 76, I suppose. So they were legal then, but so it would have been probably in the earlier 70s.
Was there something about that you couldn't get them through a GP though? You had to go to these special clinics, like were the GPs doing them?
GPs started doing them, I think. Some GPs, if they believed in them. But I remember the train. I remember the women going on the trains up to Belfast and coming back into Euston Station from Belfast and being stopped. The guards were stopping them. Yeah. They brought the contraceptives down, the condoms down from Belfast, from the clinics.
Yeah, that definitely would have been going on through the 60s.
Well, definitely into the early 70s. Yeah. Because I remember it.
Yeah. Okay, and paying the rounds at Holy Wells, that's one of our traditions where...
I've never done that.
Yeah. It's very much a Catholic thing here, really, in our lifetime, certainly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we would have been non-practicing Catholics. You would have had to go to mass and all that when you were a kid and all. Yeah.
I remember the Latin mass.
Yeah.
But there's one place, August the 15th is Ladies' Day, and there's a lot of wells in Ireland. There are ladies' wells, but there's one particularly in Laois, just outside Balnakill in Laois, and my mother's people are from there, Auchnacross, just outside Balnakill, and they would go to the well in Ladies' Well on August the 15th, and a lot of places around Ireland on that date. I don't know, is it Our Lady's birthday or Feast of the Annunciation or something like that? And that's why it's called Ladies' Day. And there'd be a lot of prayers in that. But we would have been brought as kids every now and then. My mother and father would bring us down, go down and bring us down to that one in particular. And I've gone myself as an adult. I've gone to it once or twice, but more from the point of view of meeting up with cousins rather than the religious aspect of it.
Yeah. I love how, you're talking to pretty much any Irish person, especially like from your generation. It's kind of less so in my generation, I think, and you'd prompt them about something that I'd know to be a pagan tradition, or would have come from the pagan tradition. And you kind of just have to like scratch the surface a little bit, and there's always something, there's always some memory, there's always some connection,
Yeah.
Like I really found it when I was teaching in prisons for a while and teaching writing and that, and it was like going into these hardened criminals, and you're facing this room full of lads like who, you know, the writing was one thing, but I also did a stint or not a season. What's the academic year? A cycle. Term. Thank you. Yes. I did a term teaching local history, and they were having none of it. Like there was kind of they had to tick the box to be there, kind of thing, you know. So, teaching the local history and everything. And by week 2, I had them all telling me stories from their grannies, or from, you know, some of them had actually rang their parents in the intervening week so that they'd have a story to tell me when I came back. Like, and I think every family has these connections, you know, and these kind of these cultural touch points that we don't even really like realize what we have a lot of the time, you know. But it's always there.
Yes, they're in the background. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's part of our, like I always say, like Irish paganism is a living tradition, you know. And I mean, there was an article on RTE, our national broadcaster today, which was a journalistic piece on the fires at the Hill of Ushnock, the Bealtaine fires at the Hill of Ushnock, and, you know, about the seasonal cycle and all that. And, you know, and I'm sitting there looking at it like, I think people from outside of Ireland don't really understand how integral all of this stuff still is, you know. And this is not just something that you can kind of raid for the Celtic traditions, like Celtic in bunny quotes. This is our culture, you know. This is, and
yeah, but I think it's made a resurgence over the last few years, because I don't remember anything like that growing up, or, you know, being told about.
We had a gap,
or, you know, the fires or anything like that.
Yeah. We definitely had a gap. And
and
it would have been like from kind of the, I suppose, like the mid 1900s, really, you know, was when it kind of fell out of, like, it again, colonization, you know. It became this kind of,
but I think too, Laura, sorry, I think it was like the you know, the Irish state and the whole thing that Fianna Fáil, Naaman de Valera, and, you know, forget about the past and all that kind of thing. And
that's and, you know, part of our colonization has been the church as well, and very much
the church,
like when the Irish state kind of took hold, or when the church took hold as written into the constitution, part of the Irish state. Again, thanks, Dev.
Exactly.
You know, like it changed and shifted a lot of our culture, but it never went away, you know. And those things were still being done, and, you know, people were still lighting fires, and people were still bleeding cattle, and there's still content warning for animal cruelty, I suppose. Just block your ears for a minute. But there's still, like, you know, black animals being sacrificed on St. Martinmas Day, which is a Samhain tradition, which is the 11th of November, you know, which is like a Catholic festival, right? Like a Saint's Day. But that kind of thing is still going on. But yes, it definitely kind of went underground, I think.
A
little bit more. And it's only in recent years, like in the last probably decade or so, that there is that resurgence. But it's
like it was also still being done, but it was still being done, sorry, but not being spoken about so much.
But map that with the awareness of the hold that the Catholic Church has had on our country, and the people moving away from that, you know, from that period. Like, you know, you'll see that time of it going underground, and people not talking about it, and people not actively or openly connecting with it, is that time period when we were really under the Catholic Church thumb. And we have moved away from that as a culture, and we are in the process of that. And I think that resurgence is definitely because we are naturally pagan, like in Ireland. We just are. You know?
Even if we don't admit it.
Exactly. And like even the word pagan has like negative connotations, and like it was always kind of, when I was growing up, it was always like, you're a dirty pagan, you know, you're a dirty heathen kind of thing, as in like, you're not Catholic, so you must be a pagan, you know. And it was a slur kind of. But
because you didn't, but a pagan, the church said that, you know, if you didn't believe in God and the church,
and their God specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thankfully Ireland is changing, and we're in a position now, most of us, to be able to reconnect. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And again, it's part of our living culture and our living tradition, because, you know, we are evolving and we are growing as a people, and more of that.
Thank God we have the freedom to do it.
Absolutely. We are.
A lot of people don't have that freedom.
Yep, absolutely. So, but I know that Ireland does stand as an inspiration to a lot of those people, you know, and a lot of our activists, brothers and sisters around the world would very much, like I only found this out recently. There was a huge influence on the Indian freedom movement, like the IRA hugely influenced, and the uprising and the freedom fighting here hugely influenced the Indian culture and the freedom fight there.
And the Russian Revolution.
Yeah.
That was 1917.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the 1916, Easter week 1916 influenced so many different cultures around the world.
Yeah. 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 And even modern day freedom fighters, I believe, in Syria, and, you know, definitely with the repealing the eighth, and, you know, pro-choice and access to like freedom for women, that whole movement is echoing all around the world. And like, I'm not saying the Irish are responsible for all the good things in the world, but
no,
right,
no,
but we can plant some seeds, definitely, and I think we have done, for some people at least. And it's only a good thing, you know.
Yeah, but it's great to think that, you know, other people in other countries are looking to us and seeing what we have done and the possibility of what could be done for them. It's very inspirational.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a really good note to leave it on. We have a family gathering for my grandson's first birthday, and outside, physically, socially distanced. We're being careful. So we are meeting outside. But yeah, so we're going to say goodbye. Thanks, Mam. That was a bit of a marathon session, but that's okay. Thank you so much for your time and for coming on, and you did great.
Thank you so much for asking for me and about me, and I hope I've answered some questions.
Answered every single question we got in, and beautifully.
Yeah. Well, I hope I didn't disappoint anybody.
You really didn't.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And
thank you.
For everybody else, to make sure that you check out the Irish Pagan School and like the video, because it really helps the algorithm, and it will let me know if you want more kind of interview styles like this. So I will be able to I have a couple of people that I would love to bring on the channel. So comment below if you want more interview videos, and I'll see what I can do. Okay. Slán go fóill. Slán.